Hey guys, Dr. Misty here. So today we are going to talk about poop. Okay, I've not talked about this on any of my other videos. And this is usually an icky subject for a lot of people, but we're moms and we deal with poop all the time, whether it's pets or either our own or our kids and wiping butts. So poop is definitely a part of our lives. So here's something if you have young children that you should look for, because I feel like this is very under-addressed and very unknown with a lot of young mothers. So, and this is something that the medical community isn't typically addressing. Okay. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Let me know how it's valuable for you. Okay, so poop, let's dive in. You're changing your child's diaper, right? And, you know, sometimes our kids have, you know, they can have, depending on if they're an infant or not, they can have blowouts, they can have all these different types of, you know, stool depending on what the age of the child, what they're eating, if they're breastfeeding, if they're bottle feeding or whatever. Typically, this isn't going to happen unless you have had it when you gave birth and you pass it on, or an animal passed it on. I want to address is parasitic infections. Okay, so parasites are everywhere. They're in our water supply. They are in food. They are, especially when you deal with stool and excreting stool with kids, you can be exposed to it easily. You can cough and be exposed to it. A lot of times people think that it's just viral infections. There can be parasites can live all throughout your body. And this is, again, kind of a yucky topic, but very real. And so especially if you have young kids, because here's why. Because we deal with excrement more than the average person. So we're more exposed to that. And guess what? Kids are more exposed to putting what? Stuff in their mouths. Right? They're biting on toys. They're in the sandbox, like munching down on God knows what. They're at the beach and they got like a jellyfish in their mouth, whatever it may be, right? Kids put stuff in their mouths. Kids put germs in their mouths. They put unwanted things that you would normally not put in your mouth. And so either they get ingested, specifically in the sandbox. If your kid's like 1 or 2, this is definitely something that you want to know. Especially with pinworms. Pinworms, they live in sandboxes. So if your child is eating sand and then all of a sudden they start either crying, or you see them like itching their bum, or they don't feel good, and then here's a big takeaway. If you start seeing little stringies, things that look like string, or things that have like little dots in them, those are parasites. Okay, that's typically parasite eggs. And so if you are somebody, I mention this because I've heard so many people over the last week go, man, my stomach like really acted up today, like this past week, I don't know what happened, and it's getting a little better now. It's also because there was a full moon last week, and typically that creates more hatching of the parasite eggs. So if you are somebody who is like, oh my God, this is horrifying. Yes, I had way more bloating and abdominal pain last week and fatigue and everything. Like, well, you could have this. Now, this is something that definitely can contribute to fatigue and exhaustion. Why? Because depending on the parasitic infection that you have, parasites are a host within a host. They take and steal your nutrients. Okay, so whatever it is that you're intaking, they're intaking. Okay, and whether that be, sometimes, I know that sounds weird, but it can actually be helpful to you in certain toxic environments. So if you are somebody who is living in a moldy environment, or has been exposed to a high amount of toxins, actually parasites will hold onto those, so it is less detriment for you, which is pretty powerful and very, that's part of innate healing. But parasites are everywhere. Okay, and so this is typically, we address viruses, we address funguses, we address bacteria. For some reason, we do not address parasites in America, because for some reason, I'm not sure why it went out the window. Years ago, we did address parasites more. But I can tell you that I can tell you from experience for myself and my kids, you know, especially with animals, animals can get parasites, cats can get parasites. Um, there's things that you need to watch out for. So if you are changing your child's diaper, look for those things. Or yourself, if you're using the restroom and you start to notice anything weird, those are big indicators. Okay. Um, and again, so why is this causing fatigue? Okay, well, because they're latching on to your intestines, usually in the small intestines, and they can steal your nutrients. Okay, so especially B vitamins, things like that, you're going to notice a lot more. If you are somebody with chronic anemia, you definitely you want to look at. You actually, if you have some of your blood work, I'll give you guys a little tip. If you guys have your CBC from your primary care physician and you're wondering, could I have parasites? And this is triggering something for you, here's a couple of things that you can look for in your regular blood work. So most of you get like a CBC, a metabolic panel, things like that. Here's what might help you to determine if you have parasites, if you're starting to have some of these symptoms. These will typically cause, again, a lot of B vitamin deficiencies. So the things that really are needed with your B vitamins, a lot of your liver enzymes. So if anything is elevated or specifically decreased, if you're when you're looking on your white blood cell count and you look down and it's broken down, your white blood cells are broken down to 5 different pieces. If you look at your eosinophil and basophil levels, if your eosinophil levels are more than 3, then that's more indicative. Without you having outrageous allergies, that's indicative of parasites. Same thing with basophils over 1. That can be indicative of a parasitic infection. So if you have that, feel free to shoot me a message because we can talk about what you can do further to check a few things. But again, so these things, they steal nutrients. They steal nutrients and they take them instead of you taking them. So your body may have some malabsorption type of issues. The other thing is that there's toxins, right? So our body, they can cause disruption of our GI tract. They can cause breakdown of the GI tract. Typically, I knew that was coming. Sorry about that. Typically, if you are somebody who is actually doing a detox or a cleanse, because they hold so many other toxins, you may actually notice if you're cleansing, more toxins releasing into your system that are creating fatigue. Okay, so this is something that, again, you want to look for in typically stool. You can also look for it in your blood work. What happens is your gut, especially with fatigue and even like depression, anxiety, your GI tract is so important with your mental health because it really creates signaling. It creates signaling. Even some of our bacterial cells in our GI tract create signaling with our mitochondria, which are part of our energy makers in our cells. Okay, so these all different parts of our body talk to each other in different ways. And so if we have an abundance of pathogenic microbes and our microbiome is more filled with parasites and pathogenic bacteria, like an overgrowth of bacteria and fungus, then guess what? It's congested and it's inflamed. Our GI tract is inflamed. We are not absorbing nutrients. Okay, and that is so important because our small intestine especially is where most parasites, if they're in the GI tract, live. But that's where most of our absorption happens. So if we're not getting proper breakdown of nutrients and we're not getting proper absorption of vitamins, then that is something to be concerned about. And why? What's going on? What is blocking that? Is there an issue with the actual absorption of the nutrients, or is there something else actually taking the nutrients? Okay. So that's something to really be aware of. Actually, what's funny, stool can actually show us so many different things. It's really powerful. But that is, as far as parasitic infections, is a really great diagnostic tool for that. So things that you can do to help yourself if you notice, I have a parasitic infection. What do I do? A, try not to panic. Okay, most of us have some level of pathogenic bacteria. It's not a level of, it's not a matter of perfection, and it is gross, but again, it's part of our bodies, and these are pathogens that do naturally occur, and we do get them. So the problem is if there is an overabundance and it's creating a lot more dysfunction. Okay. So what you can do is really start to reduce your sugar and grain intake. So pathogenic bacteria and parasites, they thrive on sugar, okay? And just an FYI side note, so does cancer and inflammation and everything. So reducing that in general is going to be really powerful for your health. Okay, if you start noticing you actually get sugar cravings, that can be a sign of fungal overgrowth and parasitic overgrowth as well, that your body is needing more energy. So that's something that you can do, is work on your diet, reducing simple sugars, as well as grains, things like that, things that actually feed the parasites, so you can start to starve the parasites. The other thing you can do is take a really good probiotic. And then there's other types of different tinctures that you can use. Particularly, I use a brand called Cellcore Biosciences, which is the owners of it, Dr. Todd Watts and Dr. J.J. Anderson, are brilliant physicians, and they formulated a formula that actually creates, it actually cuts through the biofilms of where the parasites they create these little biofilms to help protect them and like build homes in your GI tract. And so that actually, they have a product that's called fulvic acid that actually can help to break down some of the biofilms and to get rid of and kill some of the like the parasite eggs versus also the parasites. Things that kill parasites in general though, wormwood, garlic, oregano, those are great ones. Those are great herbs that you can start taking now, as well as N-acetylcysteine and milk thistle to help with liver detoxification. It's really important that if you guys are like, hey, I think I have a parasitic infection, I'm not sure, again, message me or comment below how I can help you. But also, you want to make sure that your body is properly detoxing, because if you have other co-infections, if you have a lot of a viral load, if you have history of Lyme, anything like that, that could like unleash a beast of other things too. So if you've had high histories of mold toxicities, Lyme, things like that, you really want to be cautious with how you're going after this. So that's just a great tip to give you guys, and to protect yourself and your kids, because there's definitely things that you can do for your children as well. This is, again, something that's not being addressed in general medical community. I've asked actually a couple of my daughter's pediatricians, and they just kind of are like, how do you know your kid has parasites? I said, well, I have eyes. And not to be facetious, but I'm like, no, I'm literally like, there's like strict, like I have pictures. And they said, well, we have to do a stool analysis to check it. And the important thing to know is that some parasites actually secrete enzymes that dissolve themselves. So by the time they get to the testing lab, they can actually be, it's not going to show up. So testing for parasites is really, really, really hard. So that's why I'm telling you, it's the only ones that come out sometimes that I have seen on testing is they're called Blastocystis hominis. So they're really tricky, and they come in life cycles, right? So they lay eggs, and it comes up and down in life cycles. So if you notice, like, oh, I had like some itching or something, or my kid had some itching and then it went away for a little while, and then like a couple months later it came back, that's why. Because there's life cycles in hatching, and typically it does have to it does follow some of the full moon cycle. I know that sounds, again, crazy and yucky, but there you have it. So Anyway, I'm Dr. Misty Kosciuszko. If this was helpful for you, please give me a thumbs up, share with your friends, and comment below on how it was helpful, and I'll make sure to add some more value to you guys next week. All right, thanks so much. Have a good one.